interesting. But let's transition away from one final and let's preview another one. And it's different. Like in America, they would probably call this the toilet bowl. But I'll tell you what, this toilet bowl has a prize in it that's just as good as the Super Bowl. So Manchester United will take on Tottenham Hotspur. I think it's in Bilbao, which is even sadder that Bilbao couldn't win against United because it would have been Spurs trying to win a final in another team's home stadium, which would have just been totally Spursy for them to have to try to do. But so Manchester United v Spurs winner enters the Champions League. I think it's guaranteed 60 million. Plus upwards of 40 to 50 million in just TV rights for the group stage, let alone if they can make knockout rounds. So this could literally be, this is both clubs' entire season as they both sit currently 16th and 17th in the Premier League table as we record this show. So I guess, Paul, I'll start here. The tournament had 32 teams in a group stage, 36 teams in a group stage, and these two teams make the final under a Swiss format. Do they deserve a Champions League spot should they win it for what they did?
I feel like it almost delegitimizes like the format itself when you have these two teams come out the other side and meet in the final, considering we've watched these teams just totally like struggle to get it over the line week in and week out. It's so interesting, man, because like I think this is financially huge for both of these clubs in different ways. Like, but I think that both of these teams have like similar issues. Like they both have like leftover pieces from multiple managers that don't seem to really work, but they have to figure out. And I think both of them have some like high wage earners they need to get off the books and clear out. I also think that it's not in either one of these teams' best interests to be playing Champions League football next year or be playing Europe and have those additional competitions anyway. Like, I just think that they have, like, I feel like both of these clubs almost need to be stripped down to the studs from a roster standpoint and rebuilt. So I guess in that way, the win is big financially. I just think that there's so much work to do on both of these team sides. They both have key injuries out. United's defensive stuff has defensive issues. Tottenham's got issues up front with their injuries. I just think it's like a collision of two clubs in similar courses that need to have a complete rebuild.
I don't disagree with you. I will say I thought it was a little bit like shocking when I think it was Gary Neville and it might have been Neville and even Roy Keane were talking, and they were like, if they were putting together a starting 11 of Spurs and United right now, they argued only Bruno Fernandes would make it in to the starting 11, and the other 10 players might be Spurs. Now, that's a little harsh because I think you could argue like maybe Dallo makes it, or like guys who have had some like decent seasons or have some skill. But if you think about it, you'd probably take Van de Ven and Romero. You take Vicario and Net. You take Pedro Porro. Hell, you might take Jed Spence and Dorgu and Udogie. You'd probably take Bergvale. You'd probably take Madison.
It's so weird because I'd argued you want Garnacho on the side, right? But he's not even starting. Like, so
then you have Son, Solanke, and Brennan Johnson. Like when you really you have Matthias Tell. Like you actually think about it, even Odegaard would be getting minutes right now for this United side. It might be the perfect type of player for him. If anyone was playing at his top form, maybe you could argue Mainu would make it in because you probably need a better holding midfielder than what Spurs have. But the point was that just shows why this is actually, like, in some ways, I think Spurs are playing more with house money, and here's why. One, Spurs aren't in the financial peril that United is. Spurs have the greatest stadium in world football. So they're always going to have open revenue sources coming in all year round, including some of the biggest concerts that the entire country hosts, and 4 NFL games every single year that make them literally like a third of what United makes in all of their match days. because of all the extra expenses at Old Trafford. United needs to win this game. I believe Spurs wants to win this game. If Spurs don't win this game, they have to rebuild their squad next year. They fire their manager. They bring in Iriola from Bournemouth, or they bring in the coach there, Silva from Fulham, right? You try to convince, maybe even you get a Glasner out of Crystal Palace or the kid out of Brighton. Like, that's your plan if you're Spurs, in my opinion, and you lose. If United loses this match, they still have a Morum. They still have an entire squad who can't play his system. And they don't have the financial constraints to make any of the moves. Like, there's a world where they win this match and they beat Arsenal the Jokeris because he's like, I'm going to come into the league and play for my old manager who helped me become a star. And I'm in Champions League. They lose that match. That could be, Liam Delap and Jonathan David.
Yeah.
And Cunha deciding to go to Chelsea. Like, I think it's so big for United. And so I'll kind of end it on this because I could care less about really previewing what's going to happen in the match, because the odds are, of the two guys I showed on the screen, the guy on the left is probably going to score a penalty because the guy on the right gets sent off. Like, that's probably how this thing will end. But in all seriousness, like, one side is Spurs. The other side is arguably one of the most decorated football clubs in the world and known for winning. Even now, when they've been bad, they win when they get to finals. Who has more pressure on them going into this? The club who's never won, or the one who can't be the first one to lose to the one who never won?
I think the answer is two parts. I think the club with the most pressure is United. I think the manager with the most pressure is Post. Because if Ange doesn't win this, I think he's gone.
I think he might get fired even if he wins. And my thought process is that when they fired Mourinho, and that was great. Remember that? They fired Jose Mourinho 3 days before the League Cup final because they were so deathly afraid he might bring the first ever trophy to them. And they were like, then we're going to have to listen to him for a lifetime, be like, I'm the only manager to win at Spurs. And instead, they hired Ryan Mason, and he showed up wearing his dad's jacket, which was like 4 sizes too big to Wembley, and it had the big gold buttons. He looked like a kid who had to go to his first ever funeral in like the 8th grade, and his parents were like, we're not buying a jacket for this. You can wear one of your older brother's ones, and it was like 7 sizes too big. Like, I don't think it'll be like that. I think Ange will be the one who allows his team to play freer. Because I think the way Ange looks at it is if we lose, they fire me and they tell me I stunk. If we win, they may fire me. But I'll always tell them I told them we'd win a trophy in our second year, and I won a European trophy and got them in Champions League football. Like, to me, I just feel like United's in such a weird spot here that I think the pressure's not only on them, I think the pressure's on their supporters. I think the pressure's on Amorim. Like, I think there's a world where he might lose his job at some point, or he may even just walk away from this project knowing it's just not feasible if they don't make Champions League football and there's no money for recruits. I mean, he took over, and this is, we should talk about this on our own Monday Night podcast, because there were so many Liverpool supporters, myself included, who thought he might be a guy they'd look at, and everybody wanted Xavi. And the truth of the matter is, you'd gotten either of them. Both of them wanted to play a back three. And we would have had the same situation of not having the right pieces and parts to play it. And we could be looking at just as bad of an outcome. And then we end up with the situation we did. And I think it just makes you realize it's not always the club or the time or whether the manager's right. It's whether the pieces in place are right. And it doesn't feel like United did anything to help this guy succeed.
No, I agree with you completely. I think, I know there's rumors that we were linked to him, and then there is some nonsense with his brother involved in like his camp. And I'd be interested to see, if all that stuff is true and his camp are really trying to drive up interest and doing all that stuff with West Ham to try to get additional interest. I do wonder if there's like any sort of regret on his part that he approached the market in the EPL differently.
Oh, I think there's absolute regret because I think there's a world where City wouldn't have gave Pep an extension if he was still available at the end of the season. He might be going into a much better side of Manchester, who would easily be able to fund the retooling of a squad that could play his style of football.